From the headquarters of TeleSUR English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm Laura Palmeiro. The State Bank of Chile announced the closure of all its branches after suffering an unprecedented cyber attack. Banco Estado, Chile's biggest bank, was forced to shut down all branches on Monday, yet virtual operations are to continue normally. In a statement shared in the bank's official account on Twitter, they informed that its branches will not be operational and will remain closed. The ransomware encrypted most of the company's servers and workstations, and official sources pointed a possible data hijacking. And in Ecuador, the Court of Cassation has upheld the 8-year prison sentence against former President Rafael Correa and others persecuted as part of what is known as the Bribes 2012 and 2016 case this Monday. The sentence was also applied to former Ecuadorian Vice President Jorge Glass and implies the loss of political rights, including the right to be a candidate to position elected by popular vote. According to the Public Prosecutor's Office, a criminal structure dedicated to attracting illegal contributions from business people in exchange for public works contracts operated the Rafael Correa government. Meanwhile, Correa has reiterated his innocence while noting that the court ruling forms part of the political persecution against him by the current government of Lenín Moreno. In response to the decision on Twitter, he also extended his solidarity to others prosecuted in Ecuador, while stressing that the court's move would only secure more popular support for him and his political allies. And former Ecuadorian President Rafael Correa described his disqualification from standing for vice president in next year's election as nonsense.
On condemning a former president when they don't have any proof, on the basis of cognitive and political references, they repeated that nonsense again because they don't have proof. They have no psychological influence. You know that I am going to have to see a psychologist, as it is just incredible. Besides, there were no bribes. This is a setup by Diana Salazar, the persecutor illegally put there, totally incompetent, that he put there to persecute us and to cover up for Moreno in all his misdeeds and other crimes.
Likewise, the former president noted that the government of Lenín Moreno fast-tracked the judicial process against him in order to secure his political disqualification.
But in any case, I am perfectly calm. I expected this because it is obvious. If they are going to act in accordance with the law, why they are in such a hurry? They heard it so much in 17 days. They resorted to an appeal. 17 days is the minimum that a private cassation appeal has taken. When it is public, it takes much longer, 4 months. The appeal of President Mawad was presented in 2017, and they have not still published it. Here, they communicated the sentence, I believe, on August 20th. And the cassation was resolved already on September 7th. 17 days, and if they rushed so much, it was obvious to condemn us and prevent us from participating in the elections. So I was prepared for this. I did not have any doubt about it. I am very realistic, but that does not mean that it does not hurt.
And this Monday, the Third Constitutional Chamber of Bolivia upheld the Supreme Electoral Courts decision to bar former President Eva Morales from running for senator for the department of Cochabamba in the upcoming general election set for October 18th. The decision was made by Judge Alfredo Jaimes, who was appointed to adjudicate on the legal deadlock surrounding Morales' candidature after 4 votes in favor and 4 against were issued by the same court on the matter last week. The judges who voted against the request had argued that former President Morales has not permanently lived in Bolivia for the past 2 years, nor those have been permanent domicile in the country, making him ineligible to stand. Meanwhile, spokesman for the movement towards socialism, Sebastián Michel, has pointed out that Evo Morales could not be present in the country because he had no constitutional guarantees following the coup against him last year, while noting that he has never changed his voting place and his official domicile is located in the Bolivian city of Cochabamba. Reacting to the news on Twitter, Morales pointed out that the court made an illegal and unconstitutional political decision under threats and pressure, while noting that despite being unable to stand, the Bolivian people will recover power peacefully and democratically. Venezuelan Vice President Delcy offered an update on COVID-19 figures this Monday. The Vice President confirmed 1,009 new locally transmitted coronavirus cases and 52 imported cases, of which 46 came from Bolivia and 6 from Brazil. Authorities have now confirmed a total of over 54,000 cases. Meanwhile, over 10,000 cases are currently active and 111 COVID-19 patients in serious or critical condition have been admitted to intensive care units across the country. Rodriguez noted that 81% of the total cases have recovered from the virus. The death toll stands at 436. The Paraguayan government has called a session of the National Congress to clarify the events surrounding the deaths of two 11-year-old Argentinian girls, following a joint police and military operation on September 2nd. The decision is scheduled to take place this Wednesday with the participation of all the military personnel involved in the operation. Meanwhile, Defense Minister Bernardino Soto noted that the executive branch will provide lawmakers with all the information about the joint operation, which is sought to raid on a camp of members of the Paraguayan People's Army guerrilla movement and resulted in the killings of two girls. Meanwhile, the United Nations officials and Argentinian authorities have called on the Paraguayan government to launch an impartial investigation to clarify the events. And we'll be right back after this very short break, so don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. Protesters gathered for a sixth night on demonstrations in Rochester, New York, following the death of Daniel Prue, a black man who died in March after officers placed a hood on his head and pinned him onto the ground as they detained him. Daniel Prude's family said he died on March 30 after being removed from life support, 7 days after his detention by police in the city of Rochester. He is the latest African-American to die after an encounter with law enforcement, cases that have galvanized protests around the United States. The grand jury represents a bolstering of the authorities' response to Prude's death, as the panel has the power to issue indictments. Typhoon Haishan reached North Korea on Monday, causing heavy rains in the capital, Pyongyang. The typhoon, which has been downgraded to a tropical storm, first hit Japan's southern island of Kyushu, ripping off roofs and dumping half of the meter, 20 inches of water in just a day. According to South Korea's Meteorological Administration, Haishan was forecast to make landfall again in Songjin, North Hamgyong province of North Korea, at around midnight. This Monday, a 4-week hearing against WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange opened in London. The hearing began with District Judge Vanessa Barraster dismissing Assange's lawyer's objection to newly introduced U.S. prosecution evidence accusing him of recruiting hackers to steal military secrets. Later, a request from Edward Fitzgerald, the adjourn of extradition case on the grounds that the defense had not had a sufficient time to gather evidence relating to the new U.S. indictment, was also refused. John Rees of the Don't Extradite Assange campaign in the UK stressed the political context behind the persecution of Julian Assange and its implications for press freedom.
Well, I'm here representing the Don't Extradite Assange campaign, which is the official WikiLeaks campaign to stop Julian being taken to the United States. And we're here today because this is now the final few weeks of the first part, I guess, of what will be the extradition process. And we're here to make an elementary point that Julian Assange isn't a spy and therefore shouldn't be subject to an espionage act, that he's a journalist, that he's on trial because he offended the United States by telling the truth about the Iraq and Afghan wars, and that those kind of characters should be protected in our society, not victimized by it.
On Monday, German authorities pledged their commitment to reach a final agreement regarding the United Kingdom's withdrawal from the European Union, while noting the German government is preparing itself for any eventuality in case a deal is not reached before the December 31st deadline.
The German government continues to be convinced that it's still possible and also that it's in the interest of both sides to reach such an agreement. But of course, one needs to reach an agreement with the United Kingdom as quickly as possible. For this, Great Britain in particular needs to move on the core issues of governance, what's summed up as level playing field. On the issue of fisheries. Once again, we are convinced that there can be a successful conclusion, but at the same time, the German government is preparing for the eventuality that an agreement isn't achieved.
Spanish health authorities acknowledged a second surge in COVID-19 infections this Monday, while reporting over 2,000 new cases.
We have a second surge that is still rising at a national level, but it's important to note that this varies according to region. In some autonomous regions, the number of new positive cases are increasing, but in others they are not. So we must be careful about giving an overall national impression that doesn't take into account the situation in the different regions. In any case, we have a situation in which detection rates tell us that we cannot compare what is happening now with what happened a few months ago.
And schools reopened in Croatia on Monday, despite a fresh surge in coronavirus cases across the country.
Yeah, this is one of the so-called half visors. They are used for protection, but they are also very practical because they allow easier breathing. I'll tell you right now, it's easier to breathe this way, and it really comes in handy that this way children can see our mouth, they can see us smile and read our emotions. We all got back to schools today, thankfully, and we hope that we will keep teaching at schools for as long as possible. What the situation will be going forward is anybody's guess, but I think we are ready for any scenario. It won't be easy for sure, but I believe that if we all work together and support each other, we will be able to pull through.
We did everything we could, everything the school can do to prepare for classes. I think other schools as large as ours will have huge problems pulling this off, like installing plexiglass barriers, which we for one weren't able to do. But nevertheless, you can hear that there's joy, and the children too are happy to see that a new school has finally started. Being physically present at school is an essential part of education, and in spite of modern technology and all the advantages that it may offer, this is still the only way to achieve a comprehensive development of children and youth. And as a society, we are managing to deal with an epidemic of global proportions.
The situation of asylum seekers stranded in Bosnia and Herzegovina's internal borders has become desperate, as local authorities have continued to deny entry to the territories for the past 3 weeks.
Too much people live in forest and the train station without food, without drink, without facility, no room. The weather is so cool. You know, we live in one t-shirt is impossible for me, for everyone, because the weather is so cool. Many guys of this is sick, realize another too much problem.
No one give help. No one. We are each only this. We are each only this. We are human, not animal. This is big problem. Leave me go. I go to border. I go to Italy. No stay here.
We don't have here convenience. We don't have here doctor. We don't have here food for these people. These people have some illness problems. Some people have unwell, you know, injury people, and more some sickness problem these people have. But with who we explain, with who we telling this problem, no one listen here our problems.
And we have more stories coming up after this final short break, so stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. Human Rights Centers of Yemen has offered a report that pointed out the deaths of about 3,500 children at a camp for displaced people in Yemen's province of Marib. The report released on Monday informed of some 7,200 children who were either killed or wounded in the imposed war of these ill-fated children. 3,468 were killed. The Human Rights Center added that 91% of the dead were those who had lost their lives in ceaseless aerial attacks by the invaders. The President of Turkey, Recep Tayyip Erdogan, made a call this Monday to the Greek government and the European Union, urging them for the collaboration of a process of dialogue over the Mediterranean dispute between Turkey and Greece.
I advise those who, instead of sitting around the table with us, show defiance with their dilapidated military forces, to carefully inspect our diplomatic efforts and military operations of the past 4 years. I also invite those who take a blind attitude toward our country, and especially the European Union, to adopt fairness and common sense.
A Turkish court on Monday sentenced an Islamic State group suspected to live in prison over the New Year's Eve attack on a nightclub in Istanbul that left 39 people dead in 2017.
The actual perpetrator of the crime, Abdulkadir Macharipov, was sentenced to 40 life sentences without parole. The reason for this was a charge of violating the Constitution. He was convicted to 1,368 years in prison for other crimes. The other 60 defendants, some of them got life, some got 6 and 11-year sentence. 11 of them were acquitted. After I discussed the verdict with my client, Ali Akhled, obviously as nothing would ease his pain, he found the punishment lacking. With this in mind, we are continuing our process of legal compensation.
The political dialogue on the Libyan crisis continued for a second day in the Moroccan city of Busnika this Monday. The meeting brings together representatives of the Libyan High Council of State and the Parliament of Tobruk. Thanking Moroccan authorities for offering an appropriate climate for negotiations, the two delegations held their first session on Sunday, during which they noted support for the ceasefire between the warring parties announced on August 20th. Meanwhile, the Arab League and the Community of Sahel-Saharan States have welcomed the talks, while calling on the parties to continue their commitments to achieve a national and integrated solution to Libya's internal crisis, sparked by the NATO-led military intervention of 2011. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov and his Syrian counterpart Walid Mualem held an official meeting on the Syrian capital Damascus this Monday to address bilateral relations.
I can assure our Syrian people that the future of the relations with our friends in Russia is promising in regards to the economic and political situation in the country. In regards to the next constitution, it will depend on what the members of the Constitutional Committee will decide, whether they want to amend the existing constitution or form a new one. In both cases, the result will be subject to a popular referendum. There are new tasks under these circumstances that include primarily socio-economic restoration of Syrian Arab Republic as well as mobilization of international help in order to achieve this task.
And Iranian health authorities offered an update on COVID-19 cases this Monday. Health Ministry spokeswoman Sima Sadat Lari reported 2,152 new coronavirus cases, bringing the total number to over 388,000. Meanwhile, the COVID-19 death toll climbed to more than 22,400 after 117 fatalities were recorded over the past 24 hours. The official noted that more than 3,700 patients are in a serious or critical condition at intensive care units across the country. And we have come to the end of this news brief. Remember, you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For TeleSUR English, I'm Laura Palmeiro. Thank you for watching.